Welcome back to Making Sense Conversations, the podcast. My name is Waceke Nduati, and I continue taking you through the diary of a mad African entrepreneur. And one of our madnesses, and I don't know if this is just African, is hanging on to people emotionally, financially, physically, when we should let them go. There's a saying that is often used that when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. When somebody tells you who they are, believe them. When you continue seeing examples of who people are, believe them. That's the truth about them. The truth about them is not the potential you think they should have, or even the potential they sold you that they had. What they are displaying over and over and over again is the truth. And we make these mistakes so many times. Sometimes we don't want to see the truth of who our kids are. Yes, that's your kid. He's indisciplined. So you've got to deal with that. Sometimes we don't want to see the truth of some of the relationships we have. And because we are talking about entrepreneurship, we don't want to see the truth of who the people we have hired are, our teams, our employees are sometimes. And I've had two different situations with different people, but let me tell you a story. Let's start with person A. I hired person A. They're no longer with me. Maybe they stayed for 6 or 7 years, and they left in about two or 3 years ago. But why did I hire person A? One, the mistake I made with person A is I even ignored my initial instinct about person A. And not that person A was a bad person. They were good. They were qualified. They had the experience. But there was something, when your instinct just picks up, there's something about this person. Let's call person A James. Yeah, so there was something about James that didn't quite add up. But because he had the necessary qualifications, and I had bought into that, and there were voices coming from outside about why this person is a fit. And I think many of you entrepreneurs have faced that, where you actually end up hiring somebody against your better judgment, against your better instinct, because of external voices of people you think they must know better than me. So you actually hire them. So James, as we're calling him, enters the organization and he's fine. He does his work, but there's always a struggle. No, is he hardworking? Yes. Did he fundamentally know the job? Yes. But there's always a struggle that you can never quite explain to somebody. Did he show the right attitude? More or less, yes. But there's always a struggle with them being able to think like you need them to think. And this is not saying you should think like me, but there's something extra I needed James to do in that role. And I kept showing him how to do it, explaining it myself over and over and over, until I started to doubt myself and saying, maybe it's me who's expecting too much. And James was also very good in coordinating other things that were outside the actual job that I wanted him to do, team buildings and things like that. So you get distracted. I got distracted by the other stuff James was doing. And I was afraid of letting James go because of that. Because fundamentally the job is being done, but it's not. It's still, I'm struggling with him, and I'm doing a lot of work over the years trying to get him to understand it. And then maybe he does once in a while, there's a spark that he's got it, and then 2 months later we are back to square one. Just didn't do the evolving I thought he could do. So I saw James from his potential, completely from his potential. So again, the work was okay. The work was good. The fundamental job description was being met, but no. Then what happened with James? James, at the end of the day, first of all, they started being a bit of absenteeism. Yeah, we didn't realize what the problem was. But I guess COVID came and exposed everybody. And while they were home, their behaviors came out. And by the time we came back from COVID, James had developed an alcohol problem. And even that, we tried to assist him, but it became extremely destructive. And lucky for us, James actually ended up quitting. So, but the mistake I did was from the very beginning, I doubted my instinct. I went against my instinct. Then after that, I doubted. There was a constant struggle because I needed him to do certain things. And then after that, I've had him for so long, I wanted to keep James. I was vouching for James. I was trying to find excuses why James should be there. So that's one example. I have another example, and this has happened with many people. So I'm not talking about one particular person. So I'm just summarizing the experience. But you can have, let's call this person, let's call her person B. Now you get these people who are so good. This person B personality is so good at their job. So you're not struggling. When they produce the work, it's how you wanted it done. They are outthinking you. They are going ahead and seeing things 10 steps ahead of you. So they become so good at their job. And you want to keep them because they are so good. The technical stuff, they are so good. When they go and perform, they are so good. I've had trainers who are so good. Even better in what they're doing than you could ever be, and you know that. So what do you get into the trap of thinking that you need them? And when you start thinking that you need them and you are dependent on them, you let them get away with murder. So they are good. But there's always a but. First of all, they are good and they know it. They know it, so even them, they get overconfident. But there's an issue. And the issue doesn't show up in their work. Their issue shows up in how they're relating with other people. So they are so good, but they start polluting the environment and the culture that you are working so hard to create. There's no business that runs on one person, including you, the entrepreneur. There's a whole team and there's a whole culture. So they start polluting. They're the ones who don't do the extra work. They don't go the extra mile, and they get away with it because they are so good. They're the ones who display a bit of an attitude with other people. They're the ones who, and sometimes you as the leader will not know that they are doing this. But later, when people feel free to talk, they are like, actually, this is what he or she used to take us through. But you keep, and even when you get a sense of it, you want to talk to them, you want to convince them, you want to say it must have been an issue. Sometimes you're so committed to seeing their side of the story or bringing people together so that they can resolve issues. When people are in front of you, they'll pretend issues are resolved. And then 2 days later, we are back to the same problem. But you're still so scared of letting them go because you think that you need them. You think that you are the one who is lucky to have them. So they get away with murder until they don't. Until one day the truth comes out. Until one day either you just have to let them go or they go. And I think God has helped me a lot in this journey when sometimes I've not let people go when they need to be let go of. Something has happened and they have ended up quitting. But I would not recommend anybody. I'm talking and giving my experience because I want people, if you're having those feelings from person A that I call James and person B, that one is they're not quite getting the job and you're distracted by the other stuff, or this other one where they're so good at their job, but they're polluting the environment and there are things that they don't commit to or don't go the extra mile, but everybody else is going around them. And then do you know what you also find with person B? You personally, you find yourself working hard to keep them. Those people who you're constantly convincing to stay in the job because that means your relationship with them is already insecure. You're constantly telling them where you're going. You're constantly convincing them in so many different ways. Sometimes you even give them increases when they don't fundamentally deserve the increases, or nobody else is getting the increases but them, because you're so committed. And you keep again looking at their potential of what they could be, and you keep convincing that that attitude they're displaying must be something that you can fix, or it's you. So why? Both cases, these are people, you should let them go. They have shown you who they are. Believe them. Their attitude, sometimes they have told you who they are. You're just ignoring what they have said. You're ignoring what you have seen, or you're ignoring what other people are saying about them. And why do we do this? I think for us as entrepreneurs, when people that we brought in, remember, we brought them in, the leader, we brought them in, or we accepted that they should be hired, you feel personally responsible for the fact that they are not working out. Yet it's not your job we take it as a personal failure. Yet we can't control how some people will show up. And I've gone for many business courses, and I think some of business courses great, but sometimes we run business courses that are helping entrepreneurs feel more like failures. For example, a lot of business courses I've gone for are telling you about culture, employee value proposition, how to keep your employees, how to retain talent, how to attract talent. So the responsibility is put solely on the entrepreneur on how to keep employees happy. So that basically the message is, employer, keep your employees happy. The laws are all about employers, keep your employees happy. If they're not happy, they can come after you a lot more easily than you can go after them. So it's the responsibility is you. So when it doesn't work out, or you can see it doesn't work, it's a personal failure, and we don't want to admit that we have failed. So we hang on. We believe it is us who are the problem. So we go around walking on eggshells around people and think it's me, you the entrepreneur. That's what I used to think. It's me who has to change something. So you're constantly changing something about yourself. You change, it doesn't work. You change, it doesn't work. And then because it's not authentic about you, then it's going to fall apart at some point. Again, as I said before, we believe you need them. Having gone through cycles of people leaving, and sometimes I have had to fire them, I now understand after 15 years in business, there's nobody that is needed in that business. If I removed myself from my own business and realized I'm not needed, there's nobody needed in that business. You will sometimes believe nobody else can do it. There are other people who can do it. Sometimes it's inconvenient. It's very inconvenient replacing, because there's that time period, there's training. But I've learned that you always get something that you needed for that season. You get that something extra. And somebody else, can do the job. What I learned through the experience with James is the person working with James, under James, was stifled by James. So now this person has risen up and taken that position and is doing it so much better than James, and faster, with the right attitude, than James could ever have done. Yeah. Then we also think that we are lucky to have them. We are not lucky. They are lucky to also have a job. We're not lucky. So we take on too much responsibilities as entrepreneurs about keeping employees happy. And you are never responsible for another human being's reactions. You are never responsible for another human being's emotions. You are never responsible for another human being's decisions. So if they don't act as your organization needs, your business needs them to act, or don't fit in as you needed them to fit in, or don't have that extra spark that you thought they had, then that's not your job to constantly force it out of them. Yes, if there's a fundamental issue with the business or the structure or the culture, that you can fix. But if it's something with the individual, let's be calling it out as it is. I think entrepreneurs, sometimes we get into this trap of protecting other people too much. We don't want other people to be sad. We don't want to call it out as it is. We don't want to be direct. We don't want to be blunt. And at the end of the day, we are the ones who end up suffering. So if I was to start a business again, this is one thing I'd remove. If it's not working out, let's call it as it is. Let's give it the time it deserves. Let's call out the mistakes. And if they're not fixed after 1-2 attempts, let's stop stop it, because it's not working for you. You're carrying dead weight. It's a burden. And clearly, it's for whatever reason, it's not working for them. There's nothing like a superstar. Some people are good, but in a business, there's nothing like a superstar. There's no business that should be built around people who are superstars. Yeah, they can be replaced. You don't need them. And if they're superstars, great that they're really good at their job, but with the wrong attitude, better just have somebody there, in fact, who's not as a superstar, but they bring the right attitude and they can learn. It is much better. I'm talking passionately about this because I've taken so long to learn this lesson, and it's happened to me over and over and over and over again. And now when I look at just to give everyone encouragement, like the team I have now, I was like, okay, this is the result of these lessons. This is the result of going having a relationship with them, having a culture that is authentic, where nobody is pulling each other's weight, where nobody is feeling like they're a superstar in their job. And it is much, much lighter. You move much, much faster. So I hope this gives somebody encouragement. I think this we carry a lot in so many places. I think we carry it in a lot of relationships in our lives, where we are constantly looking at the potential we think somebody else should have rather than who they are. And I found at that time, I did it with the people in my business, with people, but I was doing it in other personal relationships in my life, where I was making excuses for who people were showing up as. And as entrepreneurs, we have to realize what the baggage in our personal lives, or the baggage we have carried all the way in our lives from childhood, etc. If you're a people pleaser, you will tend to be a people pleaser even with the business. And that is what I also struggled with, which led to I want at all costs to see the best from people, because that's the easy way out for everybody, myself included. And I want to keep people happy. I want people to be happy. But business is not about, you want to have people happy for sure, but it should not be a burden that is on you alone to make it happen. So let us believe people when they show us who they are. Let us let go when we have to let go, because you're struggling to let go, yet when people, their season with you is over, they will let you go as you need to be let go as well. So let's keep it real. Thank you for joining my podcast, and subscribe to Making Sense Conversations, the podcast. Let's keep talking about what mad African entrepreneurs go through. Thank you very much.